Shaq Thompson for a 3-yard loss.
Shaq busting through. My goodness. And what we see is North Carolina offense coming to fruition because Cam is actually a pocket quarterback. Who knew? Oh my goodness.
Tackles the Camry, busting through at the 30, 35, 40. Quick race down the right side. Here he goes at the 50, 40, to the Miami 30, 20, at the 10. A swipe of the ankles. They can't get him. Touchdown, Christian McCaffrey.
They can't get him. They can't get him. You're right.
They can't get him. But you can catch us, the C3 Panthers podcast, every Tuesday night. It just happens to be Thursday because I came off a 5-day bender in enemy territory, mixed in with a little work, hanging out in the Big Easy, celebrating my anniversary. But we're back. The C3 Panthers podcast lives on each and every week, even if we are 2 days late and $1 short. Tonight's show is going to be a fantastic one. We've got a ton to talk about. The episode's show title tonight is Minicamp Motion in Carolina Ocean. It's episode 19.19, and I'm here with my man Cody Lashney to chop up the latest Panthers news from the fan perspective.
Tony Dunn, I gotta be honest, I'm a little bit worried that maybe you spent too much time in voodoo territory. So what we're gonna do is tonight we're gonna rebaptize you in all things Carolina Panthers, baby, and bring you back to the good side, baby. We have the best Panthers chat room on the internet. Legacy Lynn, Jeremy Clancy, Underground West, Tin Tizzy, Tony Dunn, my man. Ain't nothing to it but to do it, brother. Let's roll.
Boy, I tell you one thing is that, I had to come home and wash that Saints stink off of me. Good Lord, is like, Saints fans, if they smell half as bad as Bourbon Street, then I'd hate them just as much. No, is that New Orleans is a town where there's great food, great music, and really, really nice people in so many ways, but their football team sucks. And I did wear my Carolina gear around a whole day one day. So there was some bravado in that, especially where did I go in? And I was like, this is probably not the best way to approach this, but doing it anyway. No. So we got a great show. We had a good time. We missed Tuesday night. We don't miss a show. Rarely do we push one back. We pushed one back this week, but that will not lessen the fun that we have tonight with the greatest fans in Panther Nation. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Cam Newton. He's throwing, and I thought that would be the story, but it turns out it's this new and improved throwing motion. But there's other things to talk about as well. Is Gerald McCoy continues to be that bull on parade when it comes to the Carolina Panthers. He has been a giant addition and a giant storyline for this week as Minicamps concluded. Curtis Samuels, a little talk and a little hype around him, poised for a breakout this season. We're going to try to figure that out tonight, what that means and what he could mean for the Panthers offense. But this Panthers defense continues to undergo changes, and we will discuss those as well. So we've got a lot to talk about. Cam Newton, as always, will be the centerpiece and the focal point of almost nearly all starting points when it comes to the Carolina Panthers. We'll get into that. But before we do that, we thank you for listening to the show, supporting the show, and being a part of the show. You can continue to help us grow as a podcast by, number one, participating in the chat room, as you guys do so much and contribute so much to the development of this show and that conversation we have as Panther fans. While you're there, go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the podcast if you're listening on iTunes, Tuner, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate you. Love to hear from you. Leave a review and tell a friend about the show. I saw the Bat Daddy. I think it was the Bat Daddy this week who sent that to a friend, and it was nice when one Panther, I saw it, he tagged me, he said, you guys got to listen to these dudes, they got the dopest podcast. And then it's always cool when the other guy goes, yeah they do. So now we got a lot of fun tonight. Let's go ahead and start off, Cody. I am in New Orleans, kind of taking a break from some of just the hyper focus on Twitter and some things. I got a lot going on, paying a lot of attention to my wife and celebrating our anniversary. Had some work stuff go on. And I see Cam Newton is throwing the football. We heard about some of this clandestinely, right, in the past week. So it's not entirely new news, but I thought that this would be the central storyline. Cam Newton, boy, ahead of schedule in many ways, even though we don't like to have a timetable and a schedule. We didn't think he would be throwing and seeing this so publicly. He's throwing the stationary targets. Then there were some even moving receivers as it goes on. But Cody, I open my phone, I look into the news apps, and there is word that Cam Newton's entire throwing motion has changed. Let's go ahead and cue up video number 1. This is what I saw as I open up Twitter. We'll start with this. NFL.com. Go ahead and cue it up, and I'll talk over the beginning. NFL.com, their headline is Cam Newton to debut a new throwing motion. This is NFL.com. He unveils it. Ooh, that was quick. Analyzing Cam Newton's
you told me this before?
new throwing motion.
Want to hurt your feelings. Now look, to pull this miracle off, you gotta change everything.
And it's not that different. It's really not that different. He's still throwing the ball.
You gotta learn to be
In motion. He's left-handed now.
a fighter. Now this will confuse Apollo, and it'll protect that bad eye.
No, I can't learn how to fight right-handed no more.
And it's not that different. It's really not that different. He's still throwing the ball.
There's no chance. Now he will beat you uglier than you are now. Now listen, you start fighting right-handed, and then you change sudden, and that'll make history.
Separation in other ways than just being big and tall has become a key trait that these guys have looked for when they're drafting playmakers to put around him. Separation laterally and on routes and things.
Yeah.
Like
But first, you gotta get speed. Demon speed. Speed's what we need. We need greasy, fast speed.
Well, I think so. I mean, it's easier to throw to open guys than cover guys, I think.
So Cam Newton, turns out this is such a dramatic shift. He could be throwing left-handed for the first 3 quarters of the football game and then freaking Apollo out going right-handed. Hi, Cody, is that I made this video this evening talking about how this storyline and the headlines unveil new throwing motion, debut new throwing motion, and then Scott Turner, if you listen to the full audio, says this is not really a big deal. Now tell me, what do you think about these headlines of Cam Newton and these changed mechanics?
I mean, personally, I feel this is something that Cam Newton has been doing for more than just, the past few months ever since the surgery. I feel like I've seen Cam Newton throw this overhanded football, this really vertical arm football for, the past year or two now. That this is something that kind of happened around the time that Scott and North Turner came in. And this is something that he made a concerted effort to do. I think because of the injury, because of that aggravating the shoulder, it kind of forced him to emphasize even more time working on that new throwing motion. But I kind of think that it's going to be interesting to see what Cam Newton reverts to. You grow up throwing the football a certain way. It's hard to just all of a sudden stop doing that and retrain yourself to do something completely different. You and I were talking before the show, and Tiger Woods did something very similar in his career. He had to switch up just a minor thing in the grip of how he was gripping the club, and it really helped him out a long way into his career. And this is even after Tiger Woods was already a name in the sport. So I feel that maybe this has the potential to be the same thing for Cam Newton, as he is now a 30-year-old quarterback in the NFL.
Look, this is a non-story and deliberately misleading by the media, in my opinion, and that is this is not a change in mechanics. This is just the continued focus on refinement and improving the craft that is Cam Newton. Last year, we heard North Turner talk about it was about playing faster, playing faster, making decisions faster, right? Going through your reads faster, getting the ball out faster. That was the focus of last year. This year, right now, as Cam Newton is coming back off of rehabbing a shoulder, why would it seems just innately, it seems, trying to think of the word I'm looking for here, is that why wouldn't you be talking about mechanics as you are rehabbing a shoulder injury? And when you hear this, it's not really talking about changing anything. This is not a change. It's not a new throwing motion. This is entirely, from what I heard about Scott Turner talking about this, is to me that this is about eye and foot discipline. To me, this is like a golfer where you are continuing to work on a strength. You've had a lot of success and you are continuing to tweak and refine your craft and say, hey, as I get tired, as you get tired and you're mentally tired, here's the type of things that you do that maybe that we can keep and be mindful about. This is a mindfulness. To me, this isn't much different than anything we have heard in the past, particularly, look, if you go back to when Mike Shula here, it was talking about one year they talking about movement in the pocket. One year they're talking about continued footwork. They always see Cam Newton working on his footwork. But at the end of the day, this is just why it's a non-story, because the big headline should be if they were not practicing mechanics.
Yeah.
No need to work on mechanics. Storyline, that would be a story. To me, this is a non-issue. But what did Baldinger, it's been a lot of talk around town. I mean, this is dominated some of the headlines, and the Panthers contributed this a little bit by trying to take ownership of the live feed. Like, here's Cam Newton throwing the ball live and making a big deal. So it's not like they shaded this story or tried to bury this story. They jumped kind of not into that narrative, but celebrating Cam. What did Baldinger have to say on WFNZ about this?
If I can play it.
Come on, Baldy. No, Baldy.
No, we have it. There we go.
Really,
Good Lord.
We don't know. We don't know if he can carry these the mechanics that he's trying to alter into a real game. I mean, when you get into a game and it's live, I mean, you kind of usually revert to what you've always done. Now, we don't know. I mean, I've seen Kerry Collins shorten his motion. I did a film session with Andrew Luck, and at this time last year, Andrew Luck couldn't throw a Nerf football, and he had the best year of his career. You just don't know yet, but he's got a great quarterback coach and great coach, Norv Turner, working with him. I think Norv really enjoys working with him. I think he's excited about a lot of the young players around him. But really, Mac, we don't know how the mechanics are going to work and if they're going to be able to stick. I mean, it's not a knock on Cam if he can. If he goes in the game and he just goes to what he's always done, then I mean that's what most guys have always done. It's just hard to change at this point in your career. But at least he's trying to, which may be create less pain or maybe it's less stress on the joint. I mean, we don't know exactly all the reasons why.
Yeah, and I mean, he makes some great points there, and he talked about Andrew Luck. And, listen, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that it seems like I shit on Andrew Luck a lot. I swear I don't. I actually like the dude as a quarterback. It just it upsets me when people say that Andrew Luck has proven something in the NFL that Cam Newton hasn't. But I do think that Andrew Luck is a good example for what we're talking about here, because Andrew had a much worse injury, and then he did the exact same thing, changed up his throwing motion, and Brian Baldinger is 100% right there. Andrew Luck was not able to throw a Nerf football at this time last year, and Cam Newton...
No, not even like 3 weeks before football started, I felt like.
Right. So then imagine Cam Newton, who we already know to be Superman. I mean, I agree with Legacy Lynn. He should have a standout year this year and should shut down all the critics. So Lee Trotter in the chat room says that he would sit out Cam Newton all preseason because there's no reason to even take a risk in those games. And while I do agree with that to a certain point, I don't know, man. I want Cam Newton to build some confidence out there on the field, throw a few passes, get comfortable with that offensive line. That way he's ready to go as soon as football starts up.
Really interesting question right now.
Yeah.
Really interesting question there. Would you sit Cam Newton the entire preseason? Now, look, is that if he is feeling the best he's felt in a while, then I don't think you need to overly protect him. I do think there would be some I really think that what they should do, instead of just putting him out for a series, I say this is in the third game, we're going to go one full quarter, or as a couple of offensive possessions, full speed, and then shut it down. It's not like he's learning on the job a tremendous amount. But some real good comments in the chat room. First of all, Lynn says, Cam's been working on his small changes for a long time. Exactly, Cody, since Turner came on. And it was all just paused with injury. And now they're getting back to working on small changes. I think this is just, like she's saying, refining the craft. And I do think now Underground West says Cam is using different mechanics throwing now. The question is this: are they truly different, or are we just a little bit more mindful about some of those things when it comes to, just continuing to know where Cam Newton tends to break down mechanically when maybe under duress or when he's like fatigued? I do think, look, Cam has had historically, you just watch him play, it is a violent throwing motion. Is that he has a motion of, when I say a violent throwing motion, it looks like if you accidentally walked by when he was trying to throw a football and you caught like the aftermath of it, like you would be laid out. You know what I'm saying? Like, bam. I'm sorry, I didn't see you throwing this football here. I'm not saying get hit with the football. I mean, it looks like he put in every ounce of mustard he has.
Yeah. And listen, how about we just do this? Let's let everyone in the chat room be the judge. Because we have a clip. This is Mike Robinson of NFL Network, and he breaks down on film some of the perceived differences between how Cam Newton was throwing the football to how he's been throwing the football recently at OTAs.
Either way, they've changed his mechanics to try and keep his shoulder healthy moving forward, and it was noticeable, Mike. I didn't think that I'd be able to see the difference.
So noticeable.
Very much of a noticeably different delivery from Cam Newton. A little bit more compact delivery. You can see him keeping his off shoulder very tight to the clip. You can see right here, this is Cam Newton from last year. Very much of an open delivery, offhand down. He's torquing his upper body, a lot of arm and shoulder being used to deliver that pass right here. And here's the new Cam Newton. Tight arm, tight off arm, close to his shoulder, and he's not exposing that shoulder to too much stress with throwing the football again. Going back to last year, again, so look how much he opened up. Look how open he is. And I thought this was actually pretty compact for throwing the football, but that was open for Cam Newton. And this is, again, this year, a little bit more tight of a motion. See how everything is tight up top, keeping up a more efficient delivery so that he's using his legs more to drive the ball and not using his shoulder. And these are the pictures of the new Cam Newton. Now, I do wonder about this because he didn't throw to any moving targets today. And what happens in week 9 in the fourth quarter and he's tired.
Or when he's throwing at game speed.
Back to the old Cam Newton. It takes a lot of reps for you to be able to make this.
I mean, him just playing toss with the kids on the sidelines, you'd be like, look at how easy he looks.
Okay, this might be a stupid question, having never quarterbacked myself, but can you get enough velocity? Like, it always seems to me like you would get more velocity when you come back like that. When he's just going up here and throwing from here, can he?
Well, you heard Ron Rivera talk about him starting to connect his legs with his arm and his shoulders. And if Cam can stop falling
that would be helpful if all those were connected by your torso.
Throw and drive from the ground and use your legs to drive the ball. You take a lot of the pressure off.
And something I want to bring up, right? So they're all saying that Cam Newton's mechanics are so up and down. They're all this and that. And, I've never bought into that. I think that, they can get sloppy a little from time to time, but still, Cam Newton. Listen, we have always known that Cam Newton has one of the biggest arms in the NFL for years now. And you're going to tell me that my boy has been throwing with bad footwork and bad mechanics this whole time and still launching some Hiroshima and Nagasaki shit down the field. I mean, come on, man. Imagine if this man actually put something together that does end up being that Tiger Wood type change. And I know you don't think it's much of a difference. And really, I'm on your side. I don't think that it's that different either. But in my opinion, man, like if it might just be one tiny thing that Cam Newton has to clean up that makes him even better than we've known him to be. So
yeah, if he can get tighter, and not this compact throwing motion, right? Is that Cam Newton does tend to sling a little a lot of times.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? And it looks slingshotty. Now, can he evolve and continue to refine that? I think every player can. And if they're not trying to, that would be a concerning part. But look, these are very simple things. Cam Newton has had such crazy arm strength. He can get away with throwing off of his back foot, or he's been able, maybe not get away with, but just think this, is he can throw off his back foot farther and harder than most people can throw in a perfect throwing motion. So you go back to that game, Cody, you remember the Minnesota game? I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago. And he said, and he hits Funches. Yeah, 2017, he hits Funches and he throws across his body, across the field, off his back foot. And it turns into this miracle play that Funches scores a touchdown on.
And by the way, it was a play that he had to make on his own because that Viking defensive line shredded our offensive line, and there was pressure right in Cam Newton's face. So he had to reach into that bag of tricks and pull a rabbit out of his hat to throw a touchdown in the end zone because Cam Newton does that kind of shit on the norm.
And so he says after the game, I did everything all these folks tell me not to do. And then now y'all are celebrating me at this moment. Right. I just feel like this. Yeah, when you talk about Cam Newton's mechanics, have they been a model throughout his career of like what you would show every kid growing up from the beginning? No. But every kid is not Cam Newton, number one.
No.
Number two, like you said with this offensive, Cam Newton, there's one problem Cam Newton has, and it's not entirely his fault. He's so damn big, it's hard for him to step in always into the pocket when that pocket is naturally smaller because it's such, that it hasn't existed. And even if it did exist, he's such a large man, he needs a little bit more space. So when it's tightening and closing, sometimes it looks like he has to do he does have to do funky stuff. Now that what we have done this year is we've made a priority to go and get Cam Newton a offensive line. And to me, I think that should be the real story of the change mechanics, is now we get to see Cam Newton throw without always looking like he's Ice-T and surviving the game out there on every damn down. Maybe this is, can he get better? Can he be more mindful? Sure. But they're acting like he's atrocious. Well, I won't say that.
No,
the implication is that he had bad mechanics.
Yeah,
when we're just saying let's perfect them and improve them as we go.
And you brought up a very good point there. I don't think that there is a perfect throwing motion. I think every quarterback has to have the throwing motion that works best for them. For example, Phillip Rivers is someone that has this weird curve.
It's so ugly looking. Where do we hear all this bad mechanic crap with him?
Right. Sam Darnold is another quarterback that's the same way. There were questions about his throwing motion coming out of college. There have been other players. Even Trevor Lawrence for my Clemson Tigers has a weird throwing motion. And everyone's saying he's destined to become the number one drafted quarterback in 2021. So, you find the best motion for you. And forever, Cam Newton has been this monolith of a man, built like a god, and can throw the football from
his
anywhere
knee.
on the field.
From his knees.
Yeah, without having to have perfect form. Now, as he is getting older, I am happy that he is mindful of his body and is trying to take care of himself and put himself in a position to be able to throw the football down the field for a lot of years to come. You have to do that as you grow older.
Tin Tizzy says this: Cam needs to work on his touch pass. He throws so hard. And, I think Cody may have said this a lot last year, is maybe the shoulder injury was good for that. And that you saw finally, before he got hurt again last year, that a lot of those passes were looking a lot. He always had a lot of inaccuracy. It was not in the deep ball in the mid game. It was on those short ones because he almost felt like he had to shorten his throwing motion to not throw it hard. He was like the kid from Rookie of the Year where he had his arm just wound up so tight all the time. But and I think we saw Cam improve in that. I think when you're looking at him in these passes, those are the types of passes. It's like, hey, Cam, sometimes you can take it easy, and just a smooth backswing. And trying to hit it if you were playing golf. Now,
and I really do feel, to piggyback on that Norv Turner is building an offense where Cam Newton will be able to throw the ball short and always have an option deep. So if the first plan breaks down, you have Christian McCaffrey there to bail you out. You're going to have Curtis Samuel downfield and DJ Moore to be able to get some yards after the catch. So that's a great point, Tony.
They're talking in the chat room about the missile of an. Carl Van says 5-yard passes with the velocity of a sidewinder missile. It's true, and it almost kind of shows you too why Olsen has been so great. Is Olsen has been able to handle those fastballs pretty easily.
Oh yeah,
and he seems to be the guy that has not had the most difficulty with that. I think Cam Newton's evolving. He's going to get better, but going and let's piggyback real quickly on that conversation about Norv Turner and Scott Turner. I've been preaching on this podcast since we started the podcast that the real problem I had with the Carolina Panthers and their offense went back to our old, when we promoted Mike Shula to offensive coordinator and we made Ken Dorsey the quarterback coach. And what I felt with both Mike Shula and Ken Dorsey is that Cam Newton didn't respect them.
You see the drill.
But it was a little different when it came to, hey, this is a guy who I really have to just honor what he's saying all the time. And as he's maturing, you bring in a Norv Turner who has had so much success in this league. You get a guy who's got the pedigree with his son, Scott Turner, who has been exemplary, it seems like, at every stop he has been at as a coach and really just grown up as a coach's kid. I think Cam Newton met Norv Turner at a necessary point, and that is that Cam Newton's humble enough now, and not that he wasn't, and that Norv Turner speaks to him, and this could be resonating. These may be the same exact lessons. They're just resonating a little bit more because of the presentation and who they're coming from.
Yeah, and Norv Turner has been someone that Ron Rivera has known for a very long time. I really do think that, listen, we've given Ron Rivera his fair share of flack when we feel that he deserves it. But we also have to give him credit when credit is due. I feel like he had the foresight to understand that the quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator was a problem here in Carolina. And he had seen what Norv Turner had done with the quarterback like Troy Aikman and even Teddy Bridgewater up in Minnesota and said, yeah, I think this is someone that can, Cam Newton is already incredible. But there is a coach and his son who is younger and connect with Cam on a more personal level. These are two people that can come in and add that last little bit of extra stuff to help Cam Newton take the next step in his career. A lot of people forget that even someone like Drew Brees wasn't the Drew Brees that today until after he had his arm almost taken off in San Diego and then went to New Orleans.
They were really worried about that shoulder, weren't they?
he almost went to the Miami Dolphins and Nick Saban when he was the head coach. But the Miami Dolphins team doctor said that he wasn't clear to play and that they didn't trust that arm moving forward. So sometimes an injury, just like the one Cam Newton had, it could be the best thing that ever happened to him. And I'm hopeful that
I won't go that far, but I will say this, it's not a career ender. Like, people acted like Cam Newton was all of a sudden going to be a footnote in the NFL.
I just mean in the way that it might have caused him to take the necessary change to go and take the next step. And if that's what ended up happening, then yeah, it is a very important thing that happened to him. And the Turners have been instrumental in that.
I do want to say, when I was in New Orleans, one of the stories, well, I'm sure that they weren't talking about it in New Orleans, but related to Drew Brees had to miss some of his mini camp because he was testifying in court in a lawsuit that he was giving to, or that he was suing his former jeweler and business partner for selling him all these jewels at basically retail price, and he didn't get, and they haven't appreciated. In fact, they depreciated. He maybe overpaid, it seems like. Turns out that I'm guessing Drew Brees is not going to get his money on this one. But interesting side note is my wife's cousin lives in New Orleans and teaches Drew Brees' kids private piano lessons. He did not want me to tell anybody. Don't tell him. He won't listen. He don't listen to this podcast anyway. But I sent him a text.
Tell me that again later.
I sent him a text and I said, "Is Drew Brees going to sue you next for overcharging those damn piano lessons? You better watch out." No, let's get to a question. I got a question in the chat room that happened a long time
ago. But before we get to that question, I just want to pinpoint one thing that Adam Sanders said, and I think that really is a great point. He says, "Guys, I don't care about Cam Newton's shoulder anymore. Have you seen his attitude? The dude is having fun again, and that's when shit gets real. Point. When he's having fun, he's the best quarterback in the NFL, and that's the point right there, man. When Cam Newton loves to play football, when he's having fun, dude, the whole NFL is different, man. And of course, it's different for us as a Panther fan. But man, Cam Newton at his healthiest, at his best, it's good for everyone except for every team that we go up against."
Yeah, I don't remember it being like that last year. And that's absolutely right, is that if this rehab wasn't going well, and I've been saying that, how visible Cam Newton has been indicates a lot about how he's feeling.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so the question I do want to get to real quickly, just because Tyler Lovato asked it earlier in the show, I told him we'd get to it. He said, "Question for the podcast. Who do you think will be snubbed from the 53-man roster? The receivers are stacked, and we have tons of young linebackers we drafted in Andre Smith and Jermaine Carter. You know, and not even to mention it now, we go to a team potentially that has some defensive end overkill. Like, you know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we drafted Marquise Haynes last year pretty high. You may expect him to be out there. Mario Addison's out. I mean, FAO, you know, all of a sudden there seems to be in some places that there was real dearth and deficiency of talent. There's a lot now. And then you add in that we're going to the 3-4 system. You bring in Bruce Irvin, you draft Brian Burns, right? Number one.
Yeah.
And you know, so you added a lot of guys in these positions. You add Gerald McCoy, which fattens up that defensive tackle position a little bit more. And, you know, all of a sudden we go for some positions that have been traditional weaknesses. You know, I wouldn't be surprised is that if we see a cut in the receiver group. I don't know if it's Torrey Smith. I don't think it's going to be Jarris Wright. Could be. Then since you go and bring in Hogan.
I mean, if I'm a betting man, I'm betting that it's somewhere in that running back room. I mean, look at who all we have in the running back room now. We have Christian McCaffrey, Cameron Artis-Payne, Elijah Hood, Elijah Holyfield, the Jordan Scarlett. I mean, you know.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Oh, Cameron Artis-Payne, if you said him already.
Yeah, I did. I thought I did. And Reggie Bonifon, who was a running back from Louisville. is on the team right now.
Alex
It just seems
fullback. Like how many
I
guys?
do think that they probably do want to be able to implement the fullback. I don't think Arma will be cut in that scenario, but in my mind, it's the offense, because I do believe that the Panthers want to be very deep and multiple on their defense. So in my mind, it's probably the receiver room and the running back room that's probably going to end up seeing the hardest cuts if I'm a betting man.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. There's going to be some guys on the bubble. I continue to advocate that the NFL needs to expand the roster, right? And that's what we really need to do. Is the Panthers should be able to walk in with 60-some people and things like that. Just real quick, shout out to everybody in the chat room, specifically Ken D's here, Christina Aguiar is here, Tyler, Adam, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. Underground, Legacy Limb, we appreciate y'all's input. Carl Van, go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. We got a good show for you tonight, and it seems like we've got my main man, Joe Riolano, in the house. I'm hoping that's who it is. Joey, welcome to the C3 Panthers podcast.
What's up, guys? Glad to be here tonight.
Awesome, man. Good to hear you again. Also, hey, real quick, shout out to Jeremy Clancy for his earlier $10 love bomb. Thank you so much for supporting the show, Jeremy.
Dang, I didn't even see that.
Man,
I'm way behind in the comments. Look at how way behind.
It was one of the first ones in the chat. I just wanted to make sure that he got his recognition for.
Oh man, thank you so much. I missed it. Yeah, man. Well done, Cody, on picking that up. Thank you, Jeremy. And here, let's go on to the next segment of the show, and let's talk. We were going to talk about speed, but there is a comment. I want to go back. Let's go ahead and jump into Gerald McCoy. Here's the comment. I celebrate Festivus. Here's the comment. Gerald McCoy will quickly become a fan favorite. His personality is endearing. Let's go ahead and cue up the video of Gerald McCoy with his teammates and breaking it down in the huddle this week too.
And I want everyone to listen to the word that McCoy uses to break the huddle, because it's the most important word that is spoken here.
Oh, by the way, another thing about my teammates, man, I got snow cone trucks, ice cream trucks at the top. TD Jr. Hey, family on 3, 1, 2, 3. Family.
Don't you want that one? I gotta go weigh in first, you know what I'm saying? I've been working on my summer body. Come on, man. I need this ice, brother.
I feel like a 6-year-old right now. Let's see the guy, y'all. You gotta get one, bro.
Try that, bro. Yeah, that's a good one.
Get a sour berry blast.
You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my boy Gerald.
Hey, who this is?
What's up, man?
Look at this. No ice cream being eaten, though. I didn't see a single person get ice cream. The whole team's gone vegan.
Hey, man, like I said, after a hot, hard practice, a cool snow cone, man, let me tell you, that's a little slice of heaven right there. I can't say I blame him. But the fact that Gerald McCoy is already talking about this locker room and this team as a family, man, I'm telling you, it feels like, even though he hasn't played a snap yet, Gerald McCoy was meant to be a Carolina Panther. I know this is way too early. This is my far, far, far too early prediction. I'm willing to bet you this year Gerald McCoy is going to make such an impact that the Carolina Panthers are going to make it a priority to bring Gerald McCoy back after this year. Now, this is with no evidence. I just have a feeling in my bones that Gerald McCoy is a Carolina Panther for the rest of his days, and I feel like we will all love him for it, man. Gerald McCoy loves to be here.
I think the question when thinking about Gerald McCoy that I've wanted every reporter to ask so far is, how come you signed just a 1-year deal? Why didn't you try to go for a 2 or 3 year contract, even if it meant taking a little less per season? And I think you may be on to something here about being a very important and good fit in the absence of a Thomas Davis and a team who Gerald McCoy is like one of the older hats now, not the oldest guy, but 30 years old, a veteran in this league, a proven guy. He really speaks the language that Panther fans love to hear. I want to play you guys a real quick clip. It's not even that quick. This is McCoy on the Rap Sheet and Friends podcast talking about why he chose Carolina. And I think when you hear him and these descriptions, first of all, this will not be surprising to Panther fans, but I think it is very meaningful to football players and may indicate that Carolina could be a destination for free agents, quality free agents in the future. Here's Gerald McCoy on the Rap Sheet Friends and Friends podcast.
I gotta be honest, I knew Carolina was interested, and I mentioned their name kind of early on, but I didn't even think they would get a visit. Ron Rivera has been there for a long time. They've obviously gotten deep in the playoffs with sustained success, which is unfortunately different from what it was like for you in Tampa. That coupled with the fact that Rivera is going to be more hands-on on defense, and that part would be fun. And then, of course, I heard that Cam Newton was instrumental in pitching you. Did those kinds of things sell you on the Carolina organization?
Oh, well, not just Cam. I mean, what he said to me and the things we spoke about remain private, but not just Cam, but so they took me to lunch. And when they took me to lunch, I expected to go eat with the coaches. Well, when I walked in, there was 6 guys sitting at the table: Greg Olsen, Chris McCaffrey, Luke Kuechly, Shaq Thompson, Trey Turner, and K'Wan Short. And I'm like, yeah, at least 6 people showed up on their off day. That speaks volumes about, one, being the respect you have from the players, 2, how much they want you on the team, and 3, the type of people they are. Because they could have said, well, I might have something to do or made up excuses. No, they showed up. And not only they show up, I switched over to being a vegan. They even sacrificed and went to a vegan restaurant for me, which was, you know what I'm saying? Like, that speaks volumes. It might not speak volumes to other people, but to me, that speaks volumes about the type of people or players that are in this organization and what they represent. And that's all I want to be around. Like-minded men who have one common goal, and that's to win the Lombardi the right way.
That is a really cool story.
Really cool story. Joe Riolano, Ron Rivera was a big part in this. If you go earlier in that podcast, McCoy talks about the stability with Ron Rivera, the provenness that he's had as a head coach, but also as a coordinator and as a player. These guys, they respect Ron Rivera, and some of the stability that this Panthers organization demonstrates has become attractive. Really neat to hear just how powerful of a Carolina locker room culture that has been cultivated over the last 10 years. Joe, you there?
I think the culture that Carolina's cultivated has been something that's gone on since day one. I think they've always kept the small town, close-knit kind of feel, family kind of feel. I think that's how it's been since inception. And I can't help but see it being attractive to potential free agents. And Charlotte itself is such a great city. It's, what do they say? A small town with a big town feel. Something to that effect.
Yeah, I always call it a big little city, and I live up here.
Right. I lived there in the early 90s, but that's like right when I left.
Night and day.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's so different.
I've been in Charlotte for a little over 5 years, like right in the city, and just from the time that I've moved here, man, some areas right by me are completely different. It's growing so fast.
Yeah, and I didn't even live in the city. I lived in like Concord and out there. But yeah, it's totally different than I remember it, and that's what some of the attraction is. That it is growing, but it's not become this massive metropolis yet. So I
Well,
would imagine
he hasn't cited
Yeah.
entirely the city itself, though. Even
Right.
though I believe that is that like, look, it's a city. It's got some of the perks. It's on the up and coming. It's great with banking. So there's all these wonderful things about Charlotte's future on the horizon as a city itself. But these players continue to talk about, and like what Tyler Lovato says is how sincere he sounds. There's an authenticity here, and I like this about Gerald McCoy. I think he's going to fit lockstep, at least with the mantra and the voice that, or the perspective we've had. We've had TD celebrate for so many years, celebrating that camaraderie and that kind of live and bleed blue and black. You've seen Greg Olsen step into those shoes so easily. You see Luke Kuechly be so perfect of a fit when it comes to, like, I mean, you can't make a better football guy. And then you got Cam Newton, who's been misconstrued probably throughout his career as being overly selfish. All these different things about Cam and his flash and this and that. Cam has been nothing but a great teammate as he's developed and matured into a veteran, and he has been an asset. He's been our first superstar. So yeah, there is some diva just because people gravitate to him so much. But these guys are itching to stay, and now that Dave Gettleman is gone, it looks like it is a destination for really smart football players. And it seemed that even though Gerald McCoy cited being intrigued by all the talent that was on paper in Cleveland, he also was smart enough and ground enough to realize that all of those pieces don't mean continuity at times. And he liked the continuity of culture when it comes to Carolina. It's really impressive, and it's exciting to see that kind of finally come to, what we kind of suspected was the case the whole time. But knowing that Ron Rivera is a linchpin of that has me more excited than anything, maybe.
Yeah, he's definitely a big factor.
For sure. Like I said, I do give Ron Rivera the credit when credit is due. I've been down on the man before, but one of the things that he has absolutely been instrumental in implementing is a culture that provides a locker room that people want to be a part of. There's a camaraderie between the guys on offense and defense, and they feel like they're coming together for a common goal. And, maybe other teams have that too. I don't follow other teams. But knowing how many people have said the Panthers have a special locker room atmosphere, I mean, I don't know about you two, but as a fan, it makes me proud to know that those are the kind of guys in the locker room of the team whom I bleed their colors, man. It makes me feel good inside.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of teams. I think a lot of players really feel that connection and passion to their organization. I don't even think it's just like, hey, is that I love this team and I'm a fan so much. Is that these guys love the camaraderie of each other. I think they believe in that brotherhood a lot more. It does feel genuine and authentic. Hey, Cody, let's go ahead, and since you mentioned Ron Rivera, let's go ahead. How did he break down minicamp as it closed? Then we'll go back. Talk about Curtis Samuel. So minicamp comes to a close. The next time we will hear from these guys.
Good practice today. Make sure we're aware of the tempo. We're going to go fast. We'll get you guys on the field and off the field today. And just so everybody's aware, July 24th, training camp opens up, okay? You're required to be checked in and ready to roll. Again, I understand it's about being accountable to each other and everybody in this room. So when you come back on the 24th, you guys are ready to roll. You guys are ready to roll, and you understand what's at stake.
There's a certain intensity there and focus, and I hope Ron Rivera has it. It starts with Ron Rivera, and if he has it, I think it'll filter down to the players.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's always been that way.
as we've been talking about, thanks for listening to C3 Panthers podcast, by the way. Let's go ahead and get back to is that while Cam Newton has in his new reform throwing motion that is the same, has stolen the spotlight, and while Gerald McCoy has dominated a lot of the headlines, there are some sneaky and important storylines going on. We mentioned this last week in the podcast, and that was Norv Turner going into his second year, really having a feel for the players having a feel for him, being able to take that coaching and that teaching to the next level. But now he's also getting some guys that are becoming more polished and potentially more deadly. You think DJ Moore, but really a guy that's been on a lot of people's mind, who was sensational last year, has been hampered by injuries at time. Curtis Samuel entering his third year, endless potential, it seems like. Let's hear what Jordan Rodriguez had to say on WFNZ about Curtis Samuel this year, heading potentially into a breakout season.
They are giddy about the potential of Curtis Samuel if he can stay healthy. I mean, they don't think that guy has a ceiling. And when you see him move out there on the field, you believe it, because he doesn't really run. He floats, and he doesn't really cut in and out of his routes. He just kind of finds a wormhole and then suddenly is there. So it's really interesting to watch him move and to play. And I think people in training camp are going to be really excited to see his development, because the only thing that stood in the way of him being a really, I think, very, very good receiver, if not a great receiver in this league right now, is his health. And so I think that there's a lot to be excited about with that guy.
That's Jordan Rodriguez on WFNZ talking about Curtis Samuel entering his third year. Dynamic, very fast player, a little slight build, really a little bit thicker version, though, of Damiere Byrd. Maybe, not maybe, but it seems like a lot of people think more talented, potentially more durable. I'm very interested to see what Damiere Byrd is doing these days. But, guys, thoughts? Joey, we'll start with you. Thoughts on Curtis Samuel potentially in this third year under Norv Turner? Is he a toy that is the shiny toy that Norv Turner is ready to play with?
Yeah, you know how I feel. I think we have 3 Christian McCaffreys. And he can do everything Christian McCaffrey can do. And maybe a little bit faster. But yeah, we have 3 of the same players.
My man had 39 catches last year, and let me see, his touchdown total was where is it? He had 5 touchdowns on 39 receptions. He had 2 rushing touchdowns on 8 carries. He had a total last year. Yeah, he had I don't even understand how that's possible. Is my man he got 7 touchdowns on 30, what was that? 39 plus 2, 41 touches. That's insanity. That's a good number. He is not just fast. It turns out he's actually pretty damn productive.
He is, man. And listen, first of all, I want to thank Adam Sanders for the $1 donation. Thanks for showing some love. But also, I want to point this out, and this is very important. The difference between our 2015 season and every subsequent season that came after that, there's one key aspect, and it was Cam Newton being able to stretch the field, throwing the ball down the field to Ted Ginn Jr. and being able to open up the defense in a way that really no other team at the time was really able to capitalize on like we were able to do. I need you all to understand that Curtis Samuel is our best hope of implementing that same kind of threat that we had in 2015. And I love what Ken D says. Ken D just hit the nail on the head, because I have always said that Curtis Samuel is our own version of Tyreek Hill without punching children and his baby mama and all that bull crap that came along with it. I mean, Curtis Samuel is that dynamic of a receiver. And, if Curtis is able to stay healthy, man, we might have a legitimate weapon on our hand and Curtis Samuel. And this is not a slight towards our first round pick, DJ Moore. But if I had to pick from a pure,
he could be great too. What if you had two guys that their ceilings we can't really imagine at this point?
100%. But the ability to take the top off the defense is something that the Panthers offense, especially in today's NFL, has to be able to do. And I feel Curtis Samuel is by far our best weapon to be able to do just that.
Jordan Rodriguez and a lot of chat here. Jordan Rodriguez news kind of came out early. There was some, and I think it was Kuntz on Twitter who found this. Man, this guy was all over it early. That we knew Marcel Louis-Jacques, who's been on the show, is going to be moving on to work for ESPN now in Buffalo because an opening came up there, as well as there was rumors that Jordan Rodriguez, who's also been on the show, will be leaving. And she confirmed that today on Twitter that she is leaving. She has not told us yet what her new opportunity is going forward. A real blow to the Charlotte Observer as they head into the season and have to hire potentially 2 beat writers. If I didn't have to take a pay cut to do it, guys, I would go and do it and move to Charlotte. Yeah. But it's kind of hard to transplant. You want to get my wife a job as well and talk my children into leaving their school. But she did a good thing. She had this nice montage, like this tweet thread thanking her time, basically really celebrating the opportunity she's had. She did mention following around Julius Peppers as he was doing his work. She mentioned some other things. She did not mention, as she described herself as a nervous beat writer getting started, the controversy and Cam Newton that surrounded her that first season. I think it was her first or second season, the whole routes comment and all of that. That luckily, it seems like a lot of Panther Nation who was very mean to her over the fallout on that has forgiven her graciously on that. And, not really anyone's terrible fault in that, but, everybody has some bumps and some bruises in their career and some missteps. And I think she's worked hard to be a great reporter for the team. She is very questiony. If you listen to her in the press conferences now, she is like the most asking person up there. Poor Joe Person, those guys are like begging to get in there. Brian Strickland, like, I work for the team, and she's like, I have more questions. She is excited. It is, that youthful enthusiasm. Best of luck to her. Thank you, Adam Sanders. Continued for your support of the show. Been fantastic seeing everybody in the chat room. We continue to ask everybody to smash that thumbs up button and be a part of it. But I want to go back to Curtis Samuel just for a moment. DJ Moore, I don't want us to forget about DJ Moore. I think that DJ Moore can be just a tremendous, tremendous player going forward. I've got a lot of faith in what I saw in that rookie year. But imagine we saw with Christian McCaffrey last year is having a guy finally on the offense that can make plays beyond Cam Newton, just having to be magical. Imagine a team that had a guy or two who were explosive or playmaker to the caliber of close to a Cam Newton type-esque. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden, now we're cooking. Now we're cooking to where you don't have to have Cam Newton be the most precise quarterback in the history of football, as well as the most dynamic runner. You can just have Cam Newton be really damn good and some other guys be really damn good, and it could make for some offensive fireworks.
Absolutely. Joe, you want to take this before my loudmouth jumps in on it?
Yeah, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Listen, like I said, the yards after the catch ability of DJ Moore, the versatility and the full-fledged running back arsenal of Christian McCaffrey. Then you add Curtis Samuel being able to take the top off, Chris Hogan, I mean, if our offensive line is as improved as we think it's going to be, as we're hoping that it's going to be, yes. Am I a Panthers fan? Of course. Is this a little bit hyperbolic, this early and this far out? Yeah, maybe so. But I generally do believe that we have the roster to compete for a Super Bowl championship. And listen, if we had the roster of, Miami or Arizona, listen, I would say, yeah, we made some strides this offseason, but we didn't do enough to be a contender. I'd be honest enough to say that. I genuinely feel that right now, this Panthers team, if it works out the way we have drafted and the way we have built our team in the offseason, we have a chance to be an absolute dominant force in the NFC and contend for a Super Bowl. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, we've come a long way in a great offseason. Is that I don't think we can, but we had some building blocks, that we continued can build a defense around the Luke Kuechly. We had a lot of strength up the middle. We got Cam Newton. We've been concerned about his shoulder. A lot of signs pointing positively there, though. So a lot of good things ahead, a lot of things to be excited about. We'll come back to that because I know some people are very excited about what this defense can and will be. But, guys, we want to hear what you have to say about what's going on in Panther Nation, these developments, whether it be Cam Newton and his new or not new throwing motion, and as well as some of these things we've heard from Scott Turner and Gerald McCoy. All of these, we want to get your voice on the C3 Panthers podcast. You can do that by calling into the Cat Calls line. The number is 252-228-5098. That is 252-228-5098. Let's jump in and see what you guys got to say.
So what are your thoughts on catcalling?
Yeah, it's pretty. You shouldn't do that to somebody.
And how did that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable.
So how do you think catcalling makes the person feel?
It feels good, like.
Who's that cat sitting in the back corner with his face buried in his nose? Who's that kid that can use
C3, this is Ryan from Tucson, Arizona.
What's up, buddy?
Listening to your show the last couple of weeks. And maybe I'm tripping, but it seems like there's a little bit of confusion here. Okay, we're not transitioning to a 3-4 hybrid defense. We're just simply adding a 3-4 base defense to our 4-3 defense. Ron Rivera said it a bajillion times in interviews with reporters and analysis that he just wants to add more fronts to our defense to simply make it so that he can confuse offenses more. He drafted Brian Burns and Christian Miller because they're both guys throughout their college careers. They're hoping that can translate to pro. They're both guys who have played their hand in the dirt and also standing up. So they can add a 3-4 base to our 4-3 base, making that a multiple front hybrid defense. That's what they're just saying. That's all they're saying. It's not a 3-4 hybrid. It's a multiple front defense. That's all that it is. We're still going to call 4-3 defensive plays, but we're just sprinkling in 3-4 defensive plays with the players that we got.
See, he's on my side. That's what I've been saying.
Things that people
That's
are
what I've been saying. Totally disagree.
So, you're doing what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much for the call. I 100% disagree.
I know you do, and you've said it multiple times before.
Look, all I saw were clips this week. All I saw were clips in minicamp about how excited Luke Kuechly was to learn a new defense. Is that yes, there was learning new excitements, learning pre-snap looks. And then the same thing, McCoy says it, Luke Kuechly says it, is there's a lot of different things going on, but it's still football at the day. We've got to learn different gap assignments. You're gonna be feigning, and then I'll hear other people say this: is that, well, dude, it's not just a 3-4 defense. We're gonna run a damn nickel. Well, of course you run a nickel, right? I mean, of course. I think if anything, we're installing a 3-4 base defense. We may run a couple of 4-3 defenses, but this is a distinct shift in the philosophy and style of this football team. Why do we got so many damn linebackers like Bruce Irvin and Marquise Haynes and Christian Miller now and Brian Burns? There's too many of them to be like, oh, well, we're just going to do it the way we did it. Mm-hmm. I disagree. Mm-hmm. But thanks for the call.
You want to go, Joe?
Yeah, I think it's clearly a move to a multiple front defense. And you're adding more than just a 3-4 formation. You're going to be bringing blitz packages. There's a full-on overhaul. They're not getting rid of the defense they ran last year. They're adding a whole nother defense to it. And like you said, you got the players talking that were here last year, and then you got all the guys that they drafted. The guys that drafted are players for a 3-4 defense.
Yeah, and listen, I agree with what our caller said too. That listen, if we just went to a straight up 3-4 defense, it's not like a 3-4 defense is the perfect defense. I mean, eventually we're going to encounter the same problem. I mean, a lot of really bad teams run a 3-4 defense, and they don't get to the quarterback any better than any other team. The problem that Ron Rivera is trying to solve, and I believe him, I take him at his word when he says this, is to be able to confuse opposing offenses as to what you're doing. If they're always prepared for a 4-3 base, then they have a game plan about how to attack you. They want to instill some fear in the opposing offensive coordinators that they play every Sunday. They want to be able to do some different things so that those offensive coordinators don't know how we're going to attack them. And the caller was right. The personnel that we do have right now can fill both roles. I'm telling you, F.A. Obata is not a 3-4 outside linebacker. And they signed him to another.
And he's going to play like 3 snaps a game.
He might play, all right, but then on the other hand, though, you look at what I've been saying all offseason about Brian Burns. Everyone was saying, well, we drafted Brian Burns. He's a 3-4 outside linebacker. But most of the snaps, and I've watched all of them, most of the snaps that he took at Florida State, he had his hand in the dirt as a 4-3 defensive end. So
that's because what they played, and he played 100% of the defensive snaps. So he will not do that in the NFL. We know that he won't do that in his rookie year.
But I think the ability to do it.
Look, is that maybe we're getting too into the weeds in just simple terminology. But, if you're rushing 4 guys, what does it matter if the guy's got its hand in the dirt or if he's just standing up off to the side? Is that really that different? I don't know, though. I think this is you're going to be like, well, look, there's 4 defensive ends out there right now. And you're going to go, no, that's a linebacker playing defensive end. Or that's a defensive end playing linebacker. I truly believe this is it is bigger. Then it is more distinct. Why are the players talking so much about having to learn so much new stuff?
Right.
Why would they just be writing it off as, there's some wrinkles and some different things, but we're doing a lot of the same concepts. You don't even hear Luke Kuechly saying that.
Well, no, but it is the
only person that said that was Ron Rivera one time.
It is an entirely new facet to the defense. So even if you're doing both, it's still a big change to be able to go and do something that you really haven't been doing in a long time. Listen, ultimately, I do agree with you. This is a bigger change than just moving some pieces around and doing different things. I mean, I'll be interested to see the number of times we're in a 4-3, the number of times that we're in a 3-4, nickel, so on and so forth. And I feel like we're just going to do whatever is the hot hand at the time. If our rush is getting home from a 4-3 traditional defense that we've been playing for years, but then don't change it up. Use what works in that scenario. Maybe next week you play Atlanta and that 3-4 look is more efficient in rushing the quarterback. do different things and have the ability to do them all. And that's what I love about the makeup of our defense right now.
Interesting. My prediction is this: we're going to be in 3-4 30% of the time. We're going to be nickel 60% of the time, and we're going to be in every other package 10% of the time. Somewhere in that range. Nickel is going to be predominant on like passing downs that are down in distance, the right down in distance. You're going to need to put a bunch of corners out there. But we'll see. But I think that it's going to look much different than what you have seen Panther defenses look in the past. Then you have to go back two decades to kind of get to what they're trying to get to. We did run this in the late 90s temporarily, momentarily. We didn't have the right personnel to do it, sadly. So there's some different things. Is hopefully we're running the defense best suited for our personnel, but we went and courted a specific type of personnel in this offseason that distinctly fits a much more athletic profile for a defense. So here's your next call. The number is 252-228-5098. Thanks for the call.
What's up, y'all? Panthers podcast. How y'all doing? This is
what's up, G?
Y'all know who this is. Hey, man, I was happy, man. Hey, Cam Newton was throwing today, which was good. But to me, and I'm going to be completely honest, I really didn't see any damn thing. I'm dead serious. I mean, I wasn't really expecting to see him throw more than 20 yards or whatever, but I really didn't see anything that made me be like, ooh, wow, it's good to see him throwing and everything, which is good, and they were saying that he switched his style of throwing. I haven't seen any of it. I mean, did you guys?
Nope.
I didn't, but
saw him throwing.
This is just me speaking. You know what I'm saying? To me, he doesn't look hurt. He doesn't look hurt at all.
I agree.
It looks like he can
100%.
go next month if need be. So give me your thoughts on the little Cam Newton throwing, you know what I'm saying, in front of the media and everything. And to the asshole that took the actual footage, man, you are the man or the woman, because I like that footage. Ron Barrel was pissed. I love it. And always remember, y'all, keep hammering it.
Totally with you on this. 100% the storyline is not about Cam's mechanics. The storyline is about how good Cam Newton has looked in this process. And I don't know if physically, if you can judge like how great the shoulder is structurally and all this, but body language, activity wise, even after his original surgery, the first in what was described as the bigger of the two, I feel like he went and threw the first week of training camp. So that's 6 weeks from now. And he threw for 4 days and then they shut him down. So that was 2 years ago. In this case, they got him out there this early. I think that all signs are pointed in a good direction when it comes to Cam Newton's recovery.
Yeah, I want to hear Joe Riolano's take on this because we talked about this at the start of the show. And I gave my take, Tony gave his. Joe, from what you saw of Cam Newton and the throwing motion and all the throws that he did make that you did see, did you notice a discernible difference between the way Cam Newton is throwing the ball now and the way he's done it traditionally in the past?
Well, I saw that he was trying to do it differently. There might be a couple of throws that he did do it differently, but it doesn't look comfortable. I'll say that.
Okay, so you think it looks awkward on him?
I think when he's on the field and there are live bullets flying around, that he is going to revert back to his throwing style. But I think the only concern is with his pass throwing style is the toll that it takes on the shoulder. It's not a natural thing to do for throwing a football. So it does take a toll on the body. Anyway, I saw, I don't think it's gonna stay around. But he looked comfortable. And that's really what I wanted to see. They're comfortable with the team, I mean. He was comfortable with the guys cutting up, just being on the team.
He's not getting treatment every damn moment.
Right.
That's the thing, is that if this was really bad at this point, you wouldn't have seen him in the icy video.
Right.
You would have seen him in the ice tub. You wouldn't have seen him running around, joking around, playing around with the team, staying after practice. He talked about the grind of treatment last year and how it was how fatiguing it was to him at times because he never felt good. I think reading body language, reading all of these different things, and we know that Cam Newton isn't the most he doesn't have the best of poker faces, right? So if this was really, really bothering him or bothering him at all, I don't think we just see him laughing, smiling, giggling, and I sure as hell don't think we see him throwing. We're talking about Ian Thomas on the bike the whole minicamp. We're talking about other guys, and these are minor injuries that they're not trying to really prolong, that they want to make sure get fully healthy. We wouldn't see Cam Newton throw the ball one damn time if things weren't going well right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and something that I think is important to bring up, and listen, Cam Newton throwing, I wasn't ever afraid. Like, I know Josh from Mass, he'd been in here a few times expressing some concern that Cam Newton still wasn't throwing. And I never got concerned about Cam Newton still not having thrown up until that point. And when he did start throwing the football, it really wasn't some giant news to me. It wasn't a weight off my shoulders because I knew he was going to throw the football again. My sigh of relief comes when I see Cam Newton using whatever throwing motion, old or new, when I see Cam Newton throwing the football down the field. I mean, launching the football down the field. And
with some accuracy, where it doesn't look like a fluttering, weird, like a Joe Flacco football that's 40 yards the wrong direction.
Yeah, listen, man, that's when I breathe my sigh of relief. When I know that Cam Newton has that deep ball power that he's become famous for in his NFL career, throwing the football down the field. I'm interested to know if we're ever truly going to be able to see that kind of power from Cam ever again. I am very hopeful that we are going to see that from Cam Newton, but I don't know. As of right now, it's fair to say that the jury is still out on whether or not Cam Newton will ever have the type of power that he once had before.
It's a scary, that to me has been one of the saddest things. We've watched Cam Newton as close as you can watch him for his entire career. Now, it seems like people forgot like how, like they acted like his problem was for a long time that he couldn't throw the deep ball. That's what people act like now. When that was what he did best for the early part of his career. And what I want to see, and I will be so excited, like you said, it doesn't matter what throw in motion. I don't care if he did switch to left-handed and he did this. I want to see the Cam Newton that gives you that when he sees Curtis Samuel and lined up on the outside in single coverage, and there's a single high safety, and he knows that guy's not going to be able to catch up to Curtis, that he just says, run as fast as you can. Because the old Cam Newton, before he had the major shoulder problems, could throw the ball farther than any person could run. Ted Ginn was the only guy that could chase it down potentially. His problem was just catching it.
Yeah.
I want to see a guy who says you're the fastest dude on the field and I can throw 90 yards from my knees. So go.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Listen, I so badly want Cam
I'm with you.
Throwing 80 yards down the field to Curtis Samuel on a go route where Cam just throws the ball faster than any other quarterback, and Curtis Samuel has about 5 or 10 yards of separation, leaving the corner in the dust. Like, come on, y'all. That's what dreams are made of right there, man.
Yeah.
I want that so bad.
Yeah, it's kind of like you want to see Cam Newton throw it, and you know how like a baseball player knows he hits a home run and just like doesn't even have to like run, or he's like, let's go. I want to see Cam Newton throw it and just like start walking to the sidelines while the ball's in the air. And just knowing, like, turn his back to it, that's what dreams are made of. Like you said, is Cam Newton had that. He could throw far. He had the biggest cannon in the whole league. I'm not saying that nobody could throw it as hard or as far as him, but there was nobody that I would really put money on over him early on. He could throw a football through a piece of damn plywood. He does a lot of times.
He's in the upper echelon of arm talent when he's at his healthiest. Man, you mentioned him with Rodgers, Mahomes, now Josh Allen, Stafford, whoever the hell else you want to name that has a cannon for an arm. At peak health, Cam Newton is absolutely in that tier of quarterback.
Tin Tizzy says Curtis going to be tired as hell this season.
He better be. We're going to put some work on that heart.
Do you remember? Oh, I know. Is that like, hey, at least he got the heart fixed. Do you remember I'm pretty sure it was Cody who said this, and it might have been 2 years ago. I don't know. But when you talked about Cam Newton threw the ball and tried to take someone's soul out of them, and it was like, it's like he tried to throw it through Greg Olsen one time. And like,
Greg Olsen said that.
Yeah, is that Cam Newton? This is the problem with football media, and I'm going to blame this on the internet media, and not like us because we are flawless, but the fantasy football media. I always say they have such a recency bias. Is that what guys did last year is just going to continue to grow this year? And guys who had an off season last year, they're bound and destined for no more success. I think that, look, there are times it's kind of like saying all of a sudden, who's the running back in Arizona? David
Johnson.
David Johnson. Like, that mug can still play football. He struggled with injuries. Like, all of a sudden, you're going to forget just because you thought that David Johnson was going to be number one fantasy player 2 years ago and he wasn't, that you're going to forget all of a sudden that guy is really good. He just was on a bad team, probably struggling with injury. Cam Newton, you'll see, folks. That dude has still got a lot of football in him, looking good, excited about it. Thanks for being a part of the C3 Panthers podcast. Great call, G. Cavassier. Great discussion that it prompted. Let's go on to the next call and see what we got.
Hi, Tony. Hi, Cody. Hi, everyone out there. It's Rich in London.
What's up, Rich?
Okay,
Rich,
so
what's up, brother?
Cam Newton's throwing action. So as this is really what I do for a living, I thought I'd give people quite a detailed breakdown of what I've seen and what it looks like, and what the change really is. I use something called the Holistic Movement Assessment Chart, which allows me to describe all the motion that's going on in his body. We can start on his lower body, which they've already talked about in some detail, which is just the basic way of delivering a ball, a push-off with the back foot, a twist and a rotation of the hips so that it's going in the right direction, and then the arm coming through. But it's really the arm that we're talking about because of the problems he's had with the shoulder. So Cam's previous throwing motion and the motion that baseball throwers, pitchers, and most people have, when your arm comes away from your upper body going backwards, it goes into extension. Okay, so the ball starts to go back and goes into extension. Then as they turn the hand outwards and lengthen their arm, basically extending at the elbow now, they have an external rotation. So if you put your hands into that position, you feel quite a stretch in the shoulder. And it's stretching the muscles and the tendons of the bicep and your chest muscles. And you then, as you go to throw,